Hi everyone, today I'm going to be showing you exactly the tools I use for my Madarasz Script class. All the details about this class will be in the descriptions. If you are joining the class, I would ask that you try and follow all these tools as close as possible. This way we will eliminate any problems that you might encounter. But even if you're not joining us, this video will show you exactly the tools I use to create my calligraphy like this. The first thing I want to touch on is what nibs to use. Because of the nature of this script, the dashiness and the energy and the lines depend very much on what kind of nibs you use. If you are using inappropriate nibs, you will not be able to achieve the same dashy look. The nibs that I recommend everyone to buy is the Leonard Principle nib. You can see this on sale at many places. It is the nib with the sword looking hole. It's about $2 each, but I recommend that you buy at least 5 or so just in case. These nibs are very sharp, high quality, affordable, and widely available. So if in doubt, just buy these nibs. Here is a list of other nibs that I do use, but I really just recommend the Leonard Principle EF. No matter what, I do not recommend the G nibs for this class. These are the Tachikawa, Nikoji, Zebra G. They are not appropriate for this script. I will not be able to help you if you use these nibs. You can use whatever oblique pen holder that you like. I have a variety. If you are left-handed and you're more comfortable using a straight pen holder, feel free. But if you are right-handed, I recommend an oblique pen holder. Now that you have your pen holder and nib figured out, let's put it in the correct way. First thing you want to do is make sure your nib is clean. The best way to do this is to wash it with some dish soap so that you remove any oils that are contained in the nib. Once you have cleaned your nib, do not touch the tip with your fingers. It's because your fingers has some oils from your skin, and any of that oil will prevent ink from sticking to your nib. So once your nib is clean, do not touch the tip anymore. Get your pen holder, and I want you to put in the nib and make sure it is nice and secure inside the flange. Do not leave your nib out like this. If your nib is way too far out like this, you will not be able to have a secure hold because it's too shaky. So make sure that your nib is way in like this. If your nib is shaky within the flange, use a pair of needle nose pliers to crimp the bottom part of your flange. The metal flange can be manipulated as you like to hold the nib exactly how you like. So don't be afraid to manipulate it. The ink that I use is liquid Sumi ink. It doesn't specifically have to be this brand. Any Sumi ink is okay, as long as it's liquid. I use a very big inkwell, and I recommend that you do the same because we use a lot of ink to get the shades, and we work fast too, so we want to be able to pick up ink quickly and efficiently. These two are my favorite inkwells. This is a sake pourer that I found, and it has a spout so that when I'm done, I can just pour my ink back into the bottle. This is a shampoo sample that I got, but as you can see, it's got a wide mouth and it works great as an inkwell. When I'm preparing ink, I would pour a good amount of ink into the inkwell and always dilute it with about 20% to 30% of water. And this ink is ready to go. Because Sumi ink is very messy, I use a lot of water as my water container. Don't use a small water container because it will get dirty way too fast. When I'm writing, I always have a big roll of paper towels on hand. Fold it in half, and this way I can clean the ink of my nibs or any messes that I might have. Some people use rags, but I prefer a paper towel because once it gets dirty, I can just throw it away. I always use Rhodia paper. I'm not being sponsored by them, but I just love this paper. It comes in a pad, and I can just tear off any amount of paper that I want. I always work flat. I do not use the paper straight from the pad because then my hand would hit the edge of the pad and that obstructs any movement. And I place that paper on top of a stack of scrap paper. These are all old practice, but the point is it provides a cushion for my writing surface. So make sure you're not writing straight on the table because you have no cushion. You want to make sure there is a stack of paper underneath your actual writing paper. I also have a pencil and an eraser handy so I can draw my guidelines. This is happening because there is too much oil on your nib. The ink is pooling around the nib rather than coating it with ink, and this will happen. So what you need to do is to clean your nibs with water and preferably some dish soap, and clean it thoroughly with a paper towel, and do not touch the tip anymore. Once a nib is properly cleaned, the ink will coat the nib like a nice paint. If you are splattering too much, make sure you are not applying pressure on upstrokes. Upstrokes should never have pressure. It should always be light. Do not hold your pen holder too steep from the paper. It is much more likely to splatter. Try holding it closer to the paper. This way it is less likely to splatter. Splattering might also occur if you're using textured paper such as handmade paper. In this case, hold your pen holder closer to the paper so that you are less likely to snag. But in the best case scenario, change your paper. If you are railroading, make sure you are dipping your ink past the hole of the nib. The ink should cover the hole of the nib. If the ink is not covering the whole of the nib, you are more likely to railroad. If that doesn't work, add some water to your ink to thin it out. It might be too thick. Do not leave ink sitting out overnight, especially if you're living in a dry place, because the ink will dry out and become too thick. Always pour the ink back into the bottle when not in use. If your paper is feathering or bleeding, it's because the paper might be too low quality. There is not enough fibers in the paper to hold the ink together, and that's causing it to bleed. Plus, if you're using a lot of pressure and force, it tears the paper apart, literally, because the nib is so sharp. In this case, switch papers to a better quality paper. Make sure that your desk is clean. You don't want to be knocking into things as you're writing, as this will affect your flourishing. So put all these away. If your nib is not starting, check your nib first of all. Make sure that it's not sprung. A sprung nib means that both legs of your nibs are no longer meeting up. This nib is badly sprung. You can see clearly that the left nib is no longer meeting the right nib. You can even see the light coming through in between. If this is the case, you just want to throw this nib away. It's no longer able to be used. Another reason for your nib not starting is your ink might be too thick, so add some water to your ink. Do not hold onto your pen holder too tightly. If you're holding onto it too tightly, you will develop cramps and you will not be able to write or flourish freely. Loosen your grip and make sure you're only holding it to keep it in place. There should be little to no pressure. And that's it. A simple set of tools can create beautiful art. I hope this video has been helpful. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Remember to go on the descriptions to look at the class details, and I'll see you then. Bye!